I am Helen Paris and I'm an artist, and I come from performance. Specifically, I come from live performance, but also film and video. But what I really love is proximate performance, performance that questions how close we can get and how close is too close. And I'm also a novel writer, and I'm also a theatre professor. I love the act of paying attention. And I love the thing about live performance where it can only happen in that one way once. It's that same space, same time shared encounter. Even though arguably live performance is the runt of the litter because it doesn't have that sort of the capital sort of economic, it doesn't join in that dance. It doesn't have a price label on it. You can't buy it and take it home. You have to encounter it. You have to remember it. In my live performance work, I'm always interested in the truth. I'm interested in autobiography. I'm interested in telling stories that can resonate to my audience, with my audience, for my audience. I'm also interested in doing research, so I do a lot of research with the biological sciences, and I look at smell and memory, I look at the enteric nervous system. So I like research and I like autobiography, but then when I start writing novels, I enter a world of fiction. I think, first of all, I felt different. I'm remembering this moment. I think I was really young. I think I was 9. I was at school, and we had been asked to draw a map of Great Britain. And I was a diligent student, and I wanted to do well. So I spent a lot of time on my map of Great Britain, and I got all my coloured pencils out, and I coloured in the land, and I coloured in the sea. And then when you finished your map of Great Britain, you took it up to the teacher, and the teacher looked at it. So I was proud. I'd spent this time, this detail, choosing the colour, doing the coloration. And I took it up to the teacher's desk with a feeling of great excitement. And the teacher looked at my map of Great Britain and then took a red biro and wrote the word disgusting all the way across my map of Great Britain. And the teacher pressed down so hard with the pen that the word disgusting imprinted every other page of the exercise book. And it was a beginning of term, so it was a new book, and the map was on the first page, and it was the beginning of this adventure into the subject of history. And so now for the rest of term, I had this imprint of the word every time I turned a page. And that in that moment, being different felt being disgusting. And there was a humiliation in that, an absolute humiliation in that. And then moving on a few years, being in social gatherings and feeling suddenly that I was trying to say something, and that I was being constantly interrupted and silenced and talked over and drowned out. So I have this sense of being in mixed company, having a conversation, and feeling that I would say something. I would add a point of view or a thought or a concept, and nobody would say anything. And then a little while later, Mark or Jason or Bartholomew or Beelzebub would say exactly what I had just said. And everybody else would say, "Oh, well done, Mark, David, Beelzebub. You know, what a great idea, Mark, Jacob, Beelzebub." And that feeling of again, being silence, not being heard. I remember distinctly feeling different, feeling shut up, and finding a place, a literal place, the Institute of Contemporary Arts, which is at one end of the Mall in London, and at the other end of the Mall is Buckingham Palace. So you've got everything that Buckingham Palace is, you know, and I think back to my map of Great Britain that I sullied so terribly by doing the See the Wrong Colour, and you think of all of that whiteness and all of that institutional power and all of that heteronormativity, and then at the other end of the same street, this is in the 90s, and there is this curator of performance, Lois Keaton. And through Lois Keaton's curation, I am seeing Karen Finley, I am seeing Neo Bustamante, I am seeing Carolee Schneemann, I am seeing Bobby Baker, I am seeing Annie Sprinkle, and I am suddenly back at school, but not approaching the desk with my map about to be disgusting. I am unlearning and I am relearning, and I am finding a place of a language that I understand. I am finding a place where my difference has a place. I am finding a place that I want to belong in, and that place was queer feminist performance. And at the same time, there's this really extraordinary energy in the gay scene in London, and all of the gay scene, but I'm particularly looking at the lesbian scene, and I'm looking at the rise of drag kings and of butch identity and performing gender, but also just looking at the word queer and how queer had been such a slur for a gay community. It was another way of saying disgusting. I was making solo performance, which I think in itself is an opening for the personal to be political. So I was making solo performance at the ICA about queerness, about feminine stereotyping, about sexuality, about madness, about voyeurism, about the male gaze. And also I remember I was in Belfast in 1991, which was the very first Gay Pride March in Belfast. And there were 100 of us on that march. And now, like, the Gay Pride March in Belfast is one of the biggest events in Northern Ireland. But then, in 1991, the first one, there was 100 of us, and then behind us, there were hundreds and hundreds of protesters, mainly white men, mainly free Presbyterians sort of following Ian Paisley with their banners about how disgusting we were. So my queerness and my feminism are in some ways a duet, and they absolutely have infused my performance work, and my performance work has definitely been a place where I have found a place to use my voice and for it to be deployed in a way that I have agency over. The last novel that I wrote is called The Invisible Women's Club, and it's about sort of menopausal vigilantism, and it's about aging, and it's about intergenerational friendship. And then a lot of the sort of copy for the book, or marketing for the book, or reviews for the book described it as a book about female friendship and women finding their voice, or a book about companionship and community and women finding their voice, and a book about women finding their voice. And I feel women have always known exactly where their voice is. I feel that what it is that our voice is not listened to, is not heard, is silenced. And so I've spent a lot of time thinking about the larynx and sort of rummaging around in my voice box and thinking about the vagus nerve and how that affects us in terms of emotion, and also thinking about how interesting it is that women have a lot of jaw tension, and there's some correlation apparently between estrogen and the jaw, but I don't know, I think it's because we spend a lot of time being interrupted and not being heard. But I discovered really recently that there's this bone. It's sort of like a little horseshoe shaped or C shaped or sort of, curved bone in the throat. It's just if you put your finger where your chin and your neck meet and you swallow, you can feel it, and it's the hyoid bone, and it has a really important function in breathing and in speaking, and it anchors the tongue. But this bone, the hyoid bone, is itself untethered, and it's not connected to any other bone. And I felt a sense of real freedom in thinking about this untethered, unbridled bone in my body, and it really emboldened me to think about all the things that I haven't said or that I've not let out or that I still want to say. So I think about voice, and I think about it a lot when I teach. And when I teach my students, and these are students in universities, but they also I've also taught the mothers of prisoners in Northern Ireland, or I've taught women in Taipei, or I've taught LGBT community in Sydney. I teach wherever I can. And I invite my students at the beginning of every class to take up residence, to really take up residence with their voice, with their body. And I invite them to take up residence with their voice. I know that they come to me with a voice, but I want to share with them how, through the tools of performance, which is what I am teaching them, how their voice can be deployed, how their voice can be amplified, how they can tell their story, how they can tell the story of other people that are silenced and marginalised and shut up. So in terms of the future of feminism, that is my role in going forward with it, is partly through teaching. It will always be through making work. And, I also think it's about joy and pleasure and sex and desire. And one of the things I really love, the term, I think, came from this book about contemporary female performance. It's by Joanne Isaacs. But the subtitle is Contemporary Feminist Performance: The Revolutionary Power of Female Laughter. And I think, I love that as a call to arms. I think I go back to that humiliation, and I work through humiliation into humour, and I use humour a lot in my work, in my performance work, in my novels, in my teaching. And I think in that there's like a radical revolution.